Sly basically should have been the figure that we hold Michael Jackson to. He was that first figure. And really, him dropping the baton is the reason why Michael is, because then Michael would become the person that really breaks records and really lives the dream, like does the victory lap. With Sly's music, his music is, when broken down, it's nursery rhyme music. Like his biggest hit, Everyday People, is literally based on the playground tauntings of like he wrote as a kid. And that reaches every psychograph, every demographic. And so just his ability to remain playful, but also navigate that for little time that he successfully navigated it is a miracle. Before you have a good relationship with anybody, you got to have an excellent relationship with yourself. Rule number one was don't touch my stereo or else. And so, I was forced to listen to Marvin Gaye. I was forced to listen. I would say like James Brown sounds like grandma. Like I don't like this. But the second you hear Public Enemy, it's like, wait a minute, where did I know that from? I always wanted to be a member of the Bomb Squad, the Public Enemy production team, and that's kind of how Summer of Soul and Saturday Night Live and the Sly film feels. It's clear chaos.
Okay, thank you all for coming down to the Elvis Suite. Oh, wow, applause, none here. Okay, anyway. It's so nice when it's forced. Please help me welcome Questlove, musician and more importantly, Academy Award-winning filmmaker. His new film is Sly Lives, and let me ask you a question you asked so many people in the film. What do you think Black Genius is?
I think the desired unspoken answer is the ability to survive not only being a creative, but also literally survive. Like survive in whatever circumstance that you're in. Because a lot of us go from fight or flight to rags to riches. But it's also surviving and like getting outside of your head. A lot of guilt is felt when you have success. When you're Black, can't take everyone with you. So I guess the shortest way to say it is code switching, like the ability to code switch, to adapt to whatever environment that you're in, which I think for us is more, our success is almost seen in historical terms, like when I achieve something, I'm not thinking of just like, oh, well, I did that. Like I'm thinking in terms of history, like, okay, I did my people proud, like put one on the board for our achievements, which I mean, it's cool, but there's also a pressure behind that.
I mean, but you're like a second generation of music too. So, I mean, it's you actually have kind of a tradition.
But it doesn't mean that I'm immune or, technically at this stage in life, I should be, or at least feel free enough to not have to worry about that, like if I let myself down, do I let the entire culture down as a whole? I mean, we're seeing that right now. We're seeing like celebrities making wrong choices and having a downfall, and we take it personal, like it's affecting the culture, not just like, oh man, I had a bad week this week, or so it still happens.
Because it's a question that comes with a movie, and the question is surviving Black success. And one of the clips you have in the film is I thought it was a thing that somebody would only have asked a Black talent. She said, so this woman is saying to Sly, so did you plan on failing like this? And he goes, no.
It's weird. I hope I get to meet Maria Shriver during this press run. So the scene that he's referring to is in the cold open. Sly did a 1982 interview with a then new budding journalist Maria Shriver, and her band-aid ripping interview approach could be seen rude to some. She basically says, like, you know, you had everything that you could have asked for, that people would die to have, and you get to the mountaintop and you blow it. And whenever I show people that clip, it's kind of an anger, of course, like the nerve of someone asking that something that blatant. But I also wait when I show people that clip like 20, 30 seconds. And I ask, like, but she's right, though.
She's right, but it's also there's an audacity in that clip.
But yeah,
Of the Barbara Walters interview with Richard Pryor, there's certain kinds of questions that were asked of black people, black talent, that weren't asked of other people, and that still happens.
But that falls into the pressure. When people ask, like, why did we title it "The Burden of Black Genius" as opposed to "The Burden of Genius"? That's one of the factors that come into play, because again, you're at this stage of our lives. Like, here's a great example. There is a 1986 interview between Eddie Murphy and David Letterman. You know what I'm talking about. And mid-interview, Eddie stops the interview. Is like, Dave, why are you asking me all these black questions? Like, so how much money do you have? And what's the acreage of your thing? So how many friends do you have? And da-da-da. And I know that for some, there is a naive, benign curiosity about us, for people that don't sort of cross the aisle to get to know us as humans. So this is their chance to do it. But, for a lot of black success, it's more seen in historical terms as opposed to just the norm.
Well, it's still treated as phenomenology, and this movie to me is so interesting because the thing we tend to, if you knew this, you tend to forget is that the Sly early stuff was really complex and nobody bought it, like really incredibly music complex, and so the manager said, "Make a pop song."
Okay, so there's a lot of inside baseball Easter eggs that we kind of had to, like, one false move on my end, and this would have easily been like a 3-hour and 28-minute contextual.
I'd have watched it. I'd have watched that.
Right, but the thing is that I want to please inside baseball music heads, but I also want to reach people that absolutely don't know who Sly is, and there's a human story inside there that even if you have nothing in common with this person, as a human being, you see a little bit of yourself in there. So as a result, we really had to balance the thin line between too much inside baseball and the human story. And the human story was always going to edge out 51 to 49 anyway. But there's a moment where I really wanted to explore Sly's depression at the first album not getting that much acclaim. Of his, there's a lot of albums, but I'll just, for the sake of this interview, I'll say the important 8 albums of his canon, the first 8 albums. That first album is one of my favorites, A Whole New Thing. And
it's my favorite just because the production is so different. I mean, it's all the stuff that he does orally in that album.
Yeah.
People are doing, there's no Brian Eno without that stuff.
It's still happening now. Right. And that's the thing, like, Sly invented the alphabet for which every artist is writing. Like, the idea of, and that was important because often you'll see music documentaries or any type of documentaries where they'll just go to the tired and true, like, oh man, so amazing, or you had to be there, or man, so mind blowing. But you also have to contextualize why it was mind blowing. And Sly is the type of innovator who was so effortless in his magic that what he invented doesn't seem that special in today's context, because he literally pretty much pioneered everything that's happening now. Multi-track recording, the idea of the bedroom musician, like taking this device in my bedroom and making an album. Springsteen did it with Nebraska. Prince and Stevie Wonder made careers out of, I did everything by myself. Sly was the pioneer. His wordplay, the fact, like before Sly, I mean, yes, Smokey will forever be the Mount Rushmore of musical poetry, but just Sly's relationship to puns, to iambic pentameter, to mondegreens, to like
the musical wordplay. It's because you can actually just recite the lyrics and their music because they aren't just lyrics; they're words that have rhythm.
Yeah.
And counter rhythms. And it's funny. I've always wondered why Sly didn't get the same kind of treatment that Dylan did. We know the reason of that. I mean, what Jan Warner said about black people gave that away. But I also thought too that there is so much playfulness in his music that people tend to not take it seriously.
All right, so probably the lesson I've learned in the last 4 years is the importance. So, okay, let me give an example where probably the one figure that picked up the baton that Sly dropped. You know, if there's a redoing, Sly basically should have been the figure that we hold Michael Jackson to. Like, he was that first figure. And really, him dropping the baton is the reason why Michael, because then Michael would become the person that really breaks records and really, you know, lives the dream, like does the victory lap. But kind of in a way that we used to sort of kind of laugh or chuckle or look at Michael's silly, like with the whole like be as a child and, you know, that sort of thing. I realized that children, having the playfulness of a kid is where that's the sweet spot of creativity. You know, kids don't understand cynicism. Kids don't understand self-doubt. They're not self-conscious. And you learn probably by age 11 to 16 how to please people, how to not make this person angry, how to not get made fun of, how not to be ridiculed. But when you're a 9-year-old, you don't understand that. And with Sly's music, his music is, when broken down, it's nursery rhyme music. Like his biggest hit, Everyday People, is literally based on the playground tauntings of that, like he wrote as a kid, you know, and that reaches every psychograph, every demographic. And so just his ability to remain playful, but also navigate that for the little time that he successfully navigated it is a miracle.
See, as you're saying Michael Jackson, I thought about that because they grew up in music. They both play for audiences every day as children. And there's something of the excitement of kids that they brought to their best stuff, but also that they understood the power that music had to take people into different emotional places. You're talking about that. I was thinking about the Michael Jackson song that for me really sort of like absorbed Sly is Heartbreak Hotel. You think about the opening and then the change of tempo and then the drum machine coming out of nowhere. And then the audio effects that come out of radio because Sly did that stuff too.
Absolutely.
On radio, that's all Sly to me.
I mean, vocal hiccuping, all that Michael,
yes,
whatever call it, what's my term? Michael Monopia, like his nonsensical vocal percussion thing. That's literally from listen to Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself.
Stevie does that too.
Yeah, Stevie invented he. Listen to Maybe Your Baby on Talking Book. Like literally, Sly kind of invents the alphabet for which everything is written. Yeah.
It's for me, and I think it's. I want to ask you about this because the burden of black genius is that as soon as you get success, you're not surrounded by your own people. Because as playful as that group was that was around him, it wasn't all black people. And as you start to get sort of subtracted, that's subtracted from your everyday life, especially in that period where blackness was the way you were identified, and he was bigger than black pop. I don't mean that as a derogatory remark, but he was bigger than that. And I wonder if you thought that was part of it too, because it seems to be subtextually.
So that's one minor area in the film that kind of have the issue with. There's a, well, spoiler alert. No, I'm here to promote the film, so spoiler alert. There's a point where, air quote, the bad element enters the picture, and it's separation anxiety. You become God, or you become this God figure, and you realize it's a lonely journey. And as we've seen it throughout history, like, the idea of someone's crew or posse or boys from around the way, like, now hang with you. I think the real answer isn't, in the way that one of the Bubba speaks is like, when I came to Bel Air, to Sly's new, Beverly Hills mansion, and, seeing all these white people, and then suddenly like, hey, the hood element's here, and like the worst version of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, like where the hood element comes to Bel Air. But for real, I think the real answer is you have to have. Now, I guess in that context, it's led to believe that, Sly needs to hang with more black people to feel grounded or to feel comfortable, or like he's not selling out, which is an everyday thought to black people that sort of get separated from their people. But I think the real answer is you have to, before you have a good relationship with anybody, you got to have an excellent relationship with yourself. And it's really not until, for me at least, the pandemic, that I started questioning that, because even with all the storied success I had in 30 years, I'm probably like the poster child for like self-deprecation. Even in the Oscar moment, like self-deprecation sets in. So you gotta have a relationship and an understanding about who you are and what your life mission is before you even start to bond with other people. So I don't think it would have made a difference if Sly hung with more intelligent people, or more black people, or more women, or more whatever. It's getting in tune with yourself. And back in 1970, I think the closest that we could get to that is religion. You hear the story, man, I had to get out the life, so I became a preacher out of religion. And I kind of see that also akin to a drinking habit, or you know what I mean, like a crutch. You have to have a relationship with yourself.
Well, I asked that question primarily because he came up with his family, and for a long time performed with family. I think he got separated from a lot of the things that helped to form what he was. And I feel, especially, I think it comes through certainly in subtextual terms of the film, that being separated from all that did something to him.
Even the idea of the family that he okay, so probably the most revolutionary thing about Sly Stone is that he started an intersectional, interracial group where women are doing things that you only seen men do. Men are like, literally, it's Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech sort of manifested in front of us. And even then, that's when I really felt that the 5-year-old version of Sly was at work, because I almost felt that he did it to be provocative, to be controversial. I'm not saying that it wasn't from a genuine place of, hey, let me create this utopian musical family that I'm gonna sell as a marketing device. But I think everything about Sly Stone was to be a contrarian. The fact that he wears regular clothes on stage, that was one of the issues in Summer of Soul. Like, people never seen people,
especially black artists.
yeah, you were supposed to, soul music was basically hands up, don't shoot, I'm safe. What does Barry Gordy do at Motown? He sends everyone to charm school, teaching you how to cross your legs and sip tea and yes sir and thank you ma'am, and to be as harmless as possible.
And put white people on the first album covers.
Yeah, even to put people at ease. And so the fact that Sly wore his own street clothes was revolutionary back in 1967. And I even feel as though his mastermind of, I'm gonna have women play the trumpet, and the anchor of my funk is a 18-year-old white kid. Like, everything about that group was incorrect, and it's that rebellion that turns us on. Also, it's that middle finger of rebellion that attracts us.
But I often felt it as the middle finger of, if I do this in the right way, I can sell records, because San Francisco is kind of ground zero for that intersectionality in terms of commercialism. And as he's producing these artists, and I love it that you play Laugh Laugh, because that's basically a fun track with white people singing over it. I've always thought that, but they try to explain to people, go, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Listen to the drumming.
Yeah,
that's definitely him. I know he's playing the drums on that track.
Yeah, he's playing everything. Yeah,
but because his drums on, because Greg is actually imitating his drums sound, and I thought that, and it seems implicit in the film, that he thought, if I put this together in this way, the world is ready for this. It's just that people aren't smart enough to do it. And you make clear in the film that he's very competitive. So that's part of the exercise too, isn't it?
Even what's unique about Sly is even his compromises and his air quote failings are genius as well. Like, Dance to the Music, that was the point I wanted to make, is that he saw Dance to the Music as a compromise, as an angry compromise. Like, literally, when his A&R says, hey, like, you're too smart for your own good, nobody wants to hear your big, lofty ideas and your college words. Like, kids just want to dance. Like, shut up and just, Sly's like, all right, well, you want to dance? Fine, dance to the music. Like, literally.
I mean, there's nothing angrier than the idea of screaming "Ride, Sally, Ride" in the middle of a pop. It's hilarious, by the way.
It's totally dipped in sarcasm. Side note, I later found out that's also the origin of Kool and the Gang's Jungle Boogie, where in nightclubs, Soul Makossa, Mama say, Mama say, Mama Makossa, Mama say,
Mama Tabanga, yeah.
Right. Like, that song was like starting to light up New York nightclubs, and the owner of Delight Records brought the record in and says, look, we done did 5 records of your free jazz stuff,
but nobody's buying.
Right. So make me a version of this. And Kool and the Gang listens to Soul Makossa, and the quasi self-hating part started like, this African mumbo jumbo. Like, they made fun of it and they called it Jungle Boogie. Like, they were making fun of African culture, and okay, Jungle Boogie, make a whole bunch of noises, and then it winds up being a hit. So,
no, but part of the sarcasm becomes the precision of the playing, because there's nothing precise about Soul Makossa whatsoever. I mean, it's part of the biggest hit to ever be almost entirely improvised.
Every revolution is not planned. Like, you'll be pressed to find any musical revolution that happens that wasn't by accident or just an afterthought. Matter of fact, when you're not thinking about it, that's when it comes alive. That was like kind of one of the lessons I learned. So there's clearly a difference between the 16 Roots albums. There's a naivete I had with the first 5 records that, I might not say like, oh, that's my favorite album, whatever, because I'll just be self-critical of like, oh man, it could have been much better than that. And the hook was, and then after the 5th album, I became so self-aware that it's like almost too calculating. Whereas in doing these films, because I don't know the general rules of filmmaking, and all my ideas are like, oh, that's never been done before, we can't do that, or it's too much. It's almost like that level of naivete is needed in creativity, where you're not second guessing yourself and you're just doing what you feel.
Well, I also feel you put these movies together like albums. I mean, I feel there's definitely. Oh, yeah, because it definitely feels like that to me. Like
I'm a first generation, like, to be alive, to be 16 when Public Enemy first comes out. And what makes Public Enemy unique when it came out is Public Enemy managed to turn my father's entire record collection. I grew up in a house with 3,000, 4,000 albums. And, I as any kid, I would scoff at. I know this whole idea of like Questlove, like knowing all music and da 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 da, but my introduction to music was more kind of like Stockholm syndrome. Like, rule number one was don't touch my stereo or else. And so, I was forced to listen to Marvin Gaye. I was forced to listen. I would say like James Brown sounds like grandma. Like I don't like this. But the second you hear Public Enemy, it's like, wait a minute, where did I know that from? I'm sort of putting two together that my dad's record collection is now being used by my favorite rap group. And the way that they're using it is, it's a goulash. Like, they're doing everything but the kitchen sink. Like, nothing makes sense. And that's what they said. Their modus operandi was, we want to be music's worst nightmare. So let's just get 12 samples and just cram them into one. And it just called out to me. So in doing this, with Josh Pearson and Joseph Patel, like, I always wanted to be a member of the Bomb Squad, the Public Enemy production team. And that's kind of how Summer of Soul and Saturday Night Live and the Sly film feels. It's just, it's clear chaos. It's chaotic, but
I think it's about these moments that appear to be chaos, but actually are not. It's just that there's the right moment for them. And at the moment they happened, they felt like chaos.
My part's the chaos, and then I'm smart enough to have a team that will occasionally, like, no, you can't do that. I love overlapping language and that sort of thing. I mean, you see a lot in Woody Allen films, like people talking at the same time over each other and whatnot. So for me, it's, I want to be what the Bomb Squad was to the 16-year-old version of me, having his mind blown by how are they able to do all this beautiful chaos inside of this song.
Well, as the Lost Shockley brother, I think that what you like to do it.
That's the best compliment I've had. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We got that on tape, right? Okay. I think what you like to do is that element of surprise that the people who are making it are tickled by as they do it. You talk to Hank, you say, yeah, we were laughing. We could believe that this stuff scared people. And what Sly did by having a white drummer, it immediately makes soul music safe. You see a white guy, not doing the bottom. Oh, this is not scary if it's not a black guy doing it. I mean, I think there's what seems like calculation, and there is some in it.
Right.
It's also this idea of saying, if I do this and this and this, it's going to succeed. And I think that's a lesson you learn from the people like the Boat Problems of the Great Societies. I mean, people can do sort of what I did. And they also created like an epicenter of production in San Francisco, because then you're Greg Errico meeting up with Neil Sean, who then go play with Betty Davis. Mm-hmm. And then so that music sort of becomes sort of like the top layer and the like the bedrock layer of what pop music is.
Yeah, I think location, you know how we say like timing is everything? I think this is one of the rare cases where location is everything, because the one thing I discovered about this film was I didn't realize how wide of a net that Sly had casted.
Really?
Over, well, I knew of his life in 1967, but I didn't realize that between 61 and 67, that he, like his role in shaping and molding what we will now know as counterculture. Like when you think of San Francisco, you think of those teenage hippies. But those teenage hippies are 11 and 12 and 13 years old with their transistor radios listening to him. And, you know, the way that...
you mean to say.
Yeah, he was a DJ in San Francisco, kind of close to what Robin Williams' character was in Good Morning Vietnam.
Like, except musical. Because he actually was like, everything he did was, and people will tell you who there at the time, he was actually better than the records he was playing. He
was playing with the records. He would add harmonies
exactly.
and play piano next to the song. Like, that's how off the chain he was. Just as a DJ, he was revolutionary. And so when those 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds grow up, and now they're 19, 20, 21, 22 at the end of the 60s, like, Sly basically had a hand in the counterculture of San Francisco. But on the other side of that coin, like, if his left foot is in San Francisco, his right foot is also in Oakland with the most revolutionary period of the Black Panthers. Yeah. So it's almost like, I know that it had to have been such a clusterfuck for him to code switch at that level, you know, to prove that you're still down, that you're still a brother, but to also kind of be the Pied Piper leader of this hippie movement, you know. And yes, you're right. Like, he first produced what we know as Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead and all these groups that will, you know, make their mark in music.
What's interesting about the film too is that, like this conversation we're having here, every musician who listens to Sly takes something different away from them. It depends on the level of specialization. And then that's what's so much fun about the people you have talking on camera about them. Go from Vernon Reid to the Maxwell to then Andre 3000, Andre Benjamin to Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam. And those are the guys who really absorbed what he did.
Again, like, Sly invented the alphabet for which they all wrote books. And for me, there's a moment with George Clinton that also wound up on the floor when I asked, like, well, what's Sly's biggest effect on the P-Funk stratosphere? And he said that, and I kind of am amazed that I didn't notice that myself as a P-Funk student, that to add, each song has almost 5 hooks in it. Even the lyrics are like hooks. And so that's the same thing. Like, if you listen to P-Funk's Give Up the Funk, that's a great example. In that song are like 7 different hooks.
You listen to Loose Booty, which has 2 hooks before they start singing on it. I mean, there's two different pieces I do that.
Exactly. So the fact that Sly invented multiple choruses inside the song, the fact that his verses are also like choruses, like there's something in that song that's going to grab somebody. So that's what I mean by casting a wide net. So, you know, I hope this film does him and his history justice.
I think, though, it's still shocking to me, and I should know better than this, that somebody of that much accomplishment has still been so, his career has been so underreported. I mean,
so here's the $1 million question. Was it at his doing or not? And that's the $1 trillion question. Why do we self-sabotage?
Well, again, you start the movie off with, you know, it's maybe the worst thing that happened to Black genius is Black success.
The second that a person gets to a certain platform, the temptation to not see what's behind door number 2, up too late, you know. And it's not to say that and I don't think we should have to be so scrutinizing with every step that we take as Black artists to be like a landmine. Like, is it safe to do this? Is it safe to do this? Is it safe to do? I don't think it should be that way, because that's exhausting as hell. But
it still happens.
It still happens. And hopefully this film will be the seed planting of its undoing, which is really my goal.
But I think, though, that there's a kind of a curiosity that the film has itself about all this, which I think is constantly asking that question and realizing that it's unanswerable, and but also that it shouldn't have to be answered.
it shouldn't have to be answered, but I do believe that as artists we should answer that. And the thing is that this film is really my intervention talk. You know, Lord, you name every collaborator I ever like. Just look up my music credits, and everybody I produced or drummed for, same story. And sometimes I'll grapple with myself, like, should I say something or should I not say something, or am I a hypocrite? Like, am I indulging in the same destructive behavior, but yet judging them for doing the same thing? I saw this film as, first and foremost, beyond just being a slide doc, my chance to have an intervention talk with my peer, because I believe that now, today especially, we need every artist front and center and present, and clear-minded and in a creative space. And not to teach people or to give answers, but sometimes just to escape it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I think, though, and if we're looking at these two films as part of your discography, that there's a level of exploration in Summer of Soul and excitement about that exploration and excitement about, because you're constantly asking yourself, or the films like constantly using you're asking yourself the question about what would you have been if you were present in those eras, which I think is a really interesting thing, because these are not objective films. They're films that they're subjective documentaries. I should say, you're honest about these being subjective documentaries rather than trying to pretend that they're not.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm making content that I wish the 5-year-old version of me saw as a kid, And there's, the beautiful answer is there are kids right now. They're not even kids, just creatives all around that I'm friends with, and that this will aid them in their journey. Yeah.
Do you think that because as a cultural society now, we're so ahistorical that people can respond to these things? They certainly did with Summer of Soul, but this is a big step forward. There's a lot going on in this film, and you're asking a lot of audiences. It's a really because you don't answer any question. The questions you pose, you don't answer.
And that's what I learned from Spike Lee. Sometimes you just have to have a conversation with yourself. We purposely didn't want to give an answer or a happy ending, but you are going to walk away thinking more about your role in it. And it's going to continue more when the Earth, Wind, and Fire film comes out, because that's where I'm really going to grapple with our history with expressing emotions. Like, dealing with success is the Sly thing, but dealing with emotions and our kind of way that we matrix bullet dodge expressing emotions, that's going to be what I tackle in Earth, Wind, and Fire. So yeah, each film lures you in the name of entertainment. Hey, come see this lost footage from this festival no one knows about. Hey, remember the guy that wrote Everyday People? Let's see about his life. But you're also going to learn the subtext that you weren't expecting.
You're doing an Earth, Wind, and Fire film?
That's next.
Wow, because I mean, they're another example of a band that was too musically complicated too early, and their label dropped them, and they became a pop band.
Well, they didn't just become a pop act. Yes, they invented the idea of crossover, but they're the first metaphysical band. They're the first band that tricked black people in a non-religious way to love themselves and to believe in themselves. Because affirmations are singing a song, singing about shining star. That's affirmations, even if you don't know it. Like, I can't tell a person, like, hey, do some affirmations in the morning and believe in yourself. Like, people look at me like I'm crazy.
But they were always that. It's just that the ideas were being presented in much more musically complicated songs than till they moved to Columbia. And then they released Evil, which starts off again. It starts with a hook.
Yeah. So literally that their journey. I don't want to give too much away because we're still mid-editing. But it's examples of faith like taking a risk and really believing internally that you can do something. And it's being told in a non-after school special condescending, condescending way.
But I think these are all films that are about the burden of black genius. You know, I mean, because
Yes.
you're Maurice Wright going from being Randy Lewis's drummer to then leaving to becoming. They were a revolutionary band when they first started. I mean, they were fully about pushing the revolution ahead, and then became a spiritual band. I mean, not in the sense of religion, organized religion, but a spiritual. You can see the transition of the first three albums.
Yeah. Well, they were Earth, Wind, and Fire was always spiritual, but yeah, they somehow figured out the formula to present it in a way that didn't turn off their audience. Matter of fact, their audience didn't know it. And what you'll learn in the film is some of the band members didn't know it. So, but to be continued. I can't talk about it.
Okay, but then we can talk a little bit about. I think this film, by the last 20 minutes of it, you're kind of going, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Was that hard to do because it has the ebullience of pomp when it starts, even though you kind of presage where it's going with that question. To make it, and it's a tonal shift. Again, it's a very serious last track that you're listening to.
If you ever watched the movie Uncut Gems,
Exactly, Mother Sure.
yeah, like for me, at the time, the woman I was dating, we went to go see Uncut Gems, and she had to run out the theater and had a quasi breakdown. And I was like, well, it was almost like out of Thriller. I'm like, wait, it's just a movie. Like, what's? And she told me that, internally, she can't watch somebody go against their own interests, and her not doing, like her not being able to save or help somebody does something to her, which I'd never thought about. And that always stayed with me. And I feel like that's how you manage to get empathy in terms of Sly, because something's about to happen once you get to the height of the mountain. Now it's like, will he coast or will he sabotage it? And so probably the hardest thing in this entire film process was our collective decision to not exploit or capitalize on Sly's many fuck ups. Like, this film could have easily just been a 2-hour Sly story of some of the worst stories you ever heard.
But basically, the string of hour-long delays, like the riot in Detroit.
Well, in Chicago, yeah, like we cover some of those things, but yeah, I didn't want to just, especially to this whole reality show generation that thrives off of someone else's downfall. It would have been easy to fall in that pit, but there's still a story of a human being inside there. And so, yeah, the hardest part of this film is the editing, not including every musical gem, not including every fuck up story, not including every highlight of his songwriting career, like finding the balance in under 2 hours to tell that story.
But it's a rip, and both these films make these interesting pivots in the last section where you put us squarely inside of a world, and then you end the films kind of with the way the rest of the world examines these people in these movies. And I wonder if that was something you calculated, or is that just something that sort of came about by the way you told the stories?
Well, the end of the story is Vernon Reed's last sentence, which is basically, despite everything, Sly lives. There's one that was probably the most contested part. It was like, what's the title?
Wheels.
Oh, dude, we went through so many debates on what title should we have. But I mean, Vernon's statement that Sly lives, like, and continues to live despite the impossible Mount Fuji climb of his career, speaks volumes. And it would have been different had he died earlier. He could have been a martyr. Could have been Hendrix. But then again, Hendrix could have been Sly had he, you know, that's the question mark. That's the question mark that we grapple with.
I mean, I think one of these things that fascinates you about Black culture is how so much of it is so future thinking, so forward thinking. I mean, there's almost this. It's funny because there's films that look back at a period where Black people were not interested in nostalgia. I think it's really interesting that you made movies about, I think, a phenomenon that's unique to Black culture.
It's weird that sampling is probably the one area in which we will freely look in the rearview mirror. But for a lot of us, trauma was around the corner. Like even now, I would probably say, like, if given, keys to the time travel machine, if you were to ask me, like, when were the good times? I'd probably say 2009, which weird enough, like, I was there for Voodoo in 2000. I was there, May of 88 when I first brought that Public Enemy tape. I have happy memories in there, but just the feeling of whew, okay, I think I'm safe. It's 2009. And this is me talking. So you can imagine what someone else's answer would be. And here's the sad fun fact. A lot of my peers are dead. Dead. Just DJ Unk, the proprietor of Snap Music, Walk It Out, died just every day, just dropping like flies. And there's no answer to it. But I know the answer lies in this kind of path that we chose to, enter the arena. Will we make it out alive or not?
Well, let's thank the Estivals.
Sorry to be so negative about this, but
no, let me say it here. It's a great film, Advance. A lot of great questions. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you, Elvis. I appreciate it.